Hello everyone, my name is Moji. You're watching a Bitcoin Bubble News channel. Remember that the US has gone to war and killed millions of people to protect the petrodollar system, which is the standard way to keep the dollar as the world's reserve currency. Investigative reporter Whitney Webb talked about a lot of different topics in an hour-long chat with the podcast What Bitcoin Did. Webb thinks that the powerful people have set up a secret financial system and will do whatever it takes to keep it safe. Whitney says that there is a lot of evidence about the plans and strong efforts to protect the system at all costs, and we can see how this story has been going on for decades. Webb believes that the main cause of all the chaos in society is the dollarization of the economy and the immense power of the dollar. He also believes that the powerful will do everything in their power to keep their position. Bitcoin is now worth $63,800, which is 11% more than it was 7 days ago. Webb agrees that Bitcoin is a strong alternative for people who are trying to avoid the terrible financial nightmare of seeing their buying power drop to almost nothing. But Webb says we shouldn't be so ignorant and blind that we miss the strong link between Bitcoin and the dollar. The Webb brings to light the complicated story going on behind the scenes. For example, it shows how Bitcoin is strongly linked to the dollar and how the plan is for CBDCs to gradually take over the financial system. Webb says that this plan will be carried out in any way that is needed. Let's hear what Webb has to say. There are probably more than one reason why they invaded Iraq, but I think one of the main ones was that Saddam Hussein had recently started selling oil in euros instead of dollars and made a lot more money. He did this to show other OPEC members that they could also make more money by selling currencies other than the dollar. Another example is Libya in 2011. Gaddafi was trying to switch the country's currency to a gold-backed one called the dinar. He sold it to African countries, many of which use dollars or French money. That's why the US and France basically led that regime change operation, which had terrible results for Libya. It went from being the safest country in Africa to the most dangerous, and it has been used as an example or reason for how immigration got so out of hand in Europe after that. There are times when the US government, or rather the US empire, is ready to do anything to protect the dollar. So the idea that they would just stand there and let dollarization happen without having a plan is crazy, especially since they knew they couldn't keep this up forever and that the world was going to move on from oil at some point. But I think it's important to remember that these people have been very serious, played very dirty, and caused crazy turmoil all to keep the dollar as the world's reserve currency, which helps the US a lot. I'm sure they want to keep those benefits, even if it means using a different method. Take a look at the big picture. From a bigger picture point of view, economic warfare has been going on for a long time against countries like Argentina, Lebanon, and many others around the world. Argentina shows how it's done. The economic strategy of the 1970s and 1980s could be seen as the start of it. Some of the financial policies that Argentina had when it was a military regime were just crazy. Carlos Menem was a conservative who was in charge of Argentina in the 1990s. I thought he was poor for the country. Then their economy crashed in 2001, which once more you could say was a direct result of many of those policies, both during the regime and during Menem's presidency. After that, the IMF and all these other groups step in. They try to get Argentina to do things like debt for land swaps and debt for resources swaps after the economy crashed in 2001. This has been going on for a very long time in, if not all of Latin America, then at least most of it. It's also a grab for resources. Some of the people I've written about, Mark's written about, and the people we've written about together are the drivers of that, which is something we hint at in this piece and hope to note in future reports and a book. And in the 1980s and 1990s, getting rid of Latin America's debt was a way to connect Latin America to the US, or more generally, to many global economic interests based in the US, such as Wall Street banks. A lot of this was planned by them. So what's going on in Argentina now didn't just appear out of thin air. There is a lot of blame to go around for Argentina's central bank, but it didn't just happen there. The decisions were made by the heads of the central banks, who were chosen by the presidents. Plus, Milei, who has said bad things about Argentina's central bank, put a former head of that bank in a top job in his government. That's right, these decisions were made by leaders. From someone who has been to Argentina and written about its politics and corruption, I can say that some leaders there don't even try to hide how corrupt they are. In some cases, it's so obvious that I've never seen it happen anywhere else. Because of the way the economy is right now, those people may need steady coins. But I think that's how it was meant to be. They were put in that situation by engineers. And who does that help? I would say that the same people made both the problem and the answer. At this point in the interview, Webb keeps going into great detail about how the dollarization goes deeper than most people can understand and how their plan has been carefully thought out and tried in South American countries. Webb thinks that most of the dollarization and its link to stable coins will look harmless and not directly linked to the US because it's not connected to the US government from the outside. In the background, though, there will be a link to the Federal Reserve. In Whitney's studies, these power moves are made by the same architects who sit on the boards of shady companies that look good at first glance. Whitney says that everyone, even Elon Musk, is making fun of the move to a stablecoin-based banking system, and that things are falling into place behind the scenes, even if we can't see it. Let's keep listening to Webb as she talks about her results. I only have a few words to add about money. As Mark and I both agree, a big part of the point is to get rid of the dollar through steady coins, and some Latin American countries have become dollarized in the past. El Salvador is one case of Ecuador. Because of this, when governments become dollarized, they lose control over their own money. They start to depend on what the Fed does. A lot of bad things happen because of that. So this is an attempt to force the same thing on Latin America by the same people who planned the cases in Ecuador and El Salvador. But, it doesn't seem like too much dollarization when it comes to stable coins that aren't directly linked to the US government but are linked to the US Treasury system, for example. There are also companies like Us.Logic that are backed by the Endeavor company that this article is about, as well as businesses that Zap works with or is connected to. This company was also a big part of our previous article, Debt from Above. When you look at Us.Logic's board, you can see that Steve Mnuchin used to be the head of the Treasury Department. This is Howard Lutnick of Cantor Fitzgerald. He is one of the most important people in the Treasury system. Okay, there is also someone from the Rojotin Group. The Rojotin Group is named after Nick Rojotin, who basically ran JP Morgan's Latin American debt policies in the 1980s. This made the bank a crazy amount of money and made the Latin American debt crisis worse than it is now. So why are all those people, say, on the board of the satellite company? Also, why do these people keep showing up at Zappo? What's the deal with these people who are also interested in stable coins like PayPal, like PYUSD? Why are they all over Endeavor, the PayPal mafia? If you think about it, there are so many things that fit together that it's hard to just dismiss as random. I would add something like the rope play. That sounds a lot like what Elon Musk is doing, but I think it's done backwards. Tether had money to begin with, right? They are going into satellites and brain chips with the solid coin. Musk works on brain chips, satellites, and he may have taken over a social network to get the user data. Now, he's making it clear that he wants to turn Twitter X into a bank, which he thinks will be a big part of the financial system. What's going on there? It's really strange. Then you think about all these PayPal connections. Musk is a co-founder of PayPal. After all, it's all very like. Click on the link in the description to see the whole job. What do you think about what Webb said? Do you think that what she found is true and that there will be a secret change to a stable banking system based on coins? Write something. If the